Well, in general terms, two of these words have always been used in an interchangeable manner, justice and judgment, without actually having known about the pros and cons of use of this word and thinking that that is going to be synonymous to each other. But that is not. Now just think of it. Giving judgment to a situation and giving justice to a situation, providing judgment to a situation and providing justice to a situation. Will it be the same? The moment you start thinking about it, you will come to know of it. That is, something is amiss in all of it. Both of these words may not going to be having a similar type of meaning. Now, these words also go on to explain something associated with the culture, something associated with upbringing, something associated with values, something associated with whichever way that humanity has been talked of. And in one sense, you will go on to find that judgment is going to be all about what is delivered in the courts on the basis of logic. Justice is all about how is it that you're going to respect each other. Justice is an Eastern concept, it's an Indian concept, it's a Sanatani concept. Judgment is all in all a Western concept in this case. The Western courts, the Western scriptures and the Western rule books, they don't go on to provide justice. They don't go on to think about justice, although they may go on to be talking about it. Most of them go on to be talking about how is it to deliver a judgment. That can be emotional, that can be egoistic, that can go on to be logical, that can be legal, that can be situational, that can be anything. Justice comprises a component and variety of component of variables that form the entire gamut of what is called a justice. And judgment is going to be one delivery with the help of a hammer that this is what we say and that is what is going to be correct. Ethics requires a small bit of a difference within both of them or a large bit of a difference. In any case, ethics is going to be generally associated with different emotional differentiation, and that is also a part of it. That is the notion of justice and judgment. Now think of it. We are talking about that is the meaning of justice is going to be associated with just, right, truthful, and judgment. Such is going to just that will go to suit the situation. Right, that means it is right to that person. Truthful has to be there. Judgment is all in all based on something very, very, very different. And if you can go on to understand it, that is maybe that we can go to talk about fair and equal, that is justice, administration of the law. The word is going to be significant here. We are going to be talking about a law. Law is going to be significant here. That is, and then without corruption, favor, greed, or prejudice. That is, you're going to deliver a judgment that no one can go on to question. But then justice is what you feel, that is, no, you haven't been properly judgmental to a person, even if it's that you're going to deliver it part. Just going to give you an example. A person who may have taken a bribe of 50 rupees some 20 years back, maybe some 30 years back, and the case goes on to be with respect to rustication from his job, from removal from his job, and a variety of other type of punishments. Now imagine the plight of the person who has gone through 30 years only because he made an intentional or an unintentional mistake of taking some type of a bribe to such an extent. Now, when you're going to think of it, is it not that the biggest bribe and the biggest form of a corruption, the biggest form of injustice is going to be something like politics? Is it not so? You will go on to imagine that when you're going to do something like a small theft, then you may be punished. When you go on to do the biggest theft in the whole of the world, then you are one who are going to be eulogized. When you go on to do some of this type of theft through politics, by being in an upright position, change the policies to such an extent, then you'll think that the people themselves, they'll start going to proving you right in this case. But when it is going to be of a small dimension, then people are going to be going against you. That's the basic difference between doing some type of a theft, doing some type of robbery at the highest level, and doing some type of a robbery at the lowest level in this case. Justice will be talking about whether it is going to be, that is, to what extent you go on to what extent is it that the people of India have been provided with justice, all those people whom we think that they have been granted independence in 1947. If you think of it, that was a judgment. Well, two people are going to be different, Hindus and Muslims are different, and they will going to form two countries. But have you provided justice to them? Answer is no. Justice at least have not been provided to the Hindu population, largely because the Muslims got a land out of nowhere. That was not their land, not at all. And still they got some piece of a land only because they were able to be indecent, they were able to be very, very criminal, they were able to be terrorists, they were able to terrorize people, they were able to threaten people, they were able to break silence, peace, and almost all of them. Now, is it justice? Is it that is justice? The answer in this case is absolutely no. Justice is also going to be about, as we talked about, that is just. It is going to be understanding of the person. It is going to be sympathetic towards the situation. It is also going to be tough to one extent. To what extent it is going to be tough? Justice can be, cannot be. It can be. This is something that can be questioned. That is, justice can go on to be imaginative because you are in a position to imagine whether what was the situation during this time when this maybe any type of a crime or any type of situation or any type of event took place. It is all, of course, all being calm, and it is about what we were talking about, easy going. But then this goes on to be associated with a Western notion. Most of it is going to be generally associated with judgment. Justice is what you're going to feel. If you feel that you have done justice, you have done justice. And if you don't going to be, then most of the times it may not going to be so. We're just going to take an example in this case. Now, the topic has come into vogue largely because of some cases that go on to show a mockery of whatever judgment that have been delivered. Just take a look at it and an example. Lalu Yadav, he gobbled something like 12,000 crores of rupees. His case went on for 17 years. That was the time that it took for it to provide judgment to it. And only 3 months it took for him to get a bail. And that is it. Now you think of it, is it not a mockery of justice in this case? Although the judgment was delivered that he is going to be on bail. Pick up the case of someone like Jayalalitha. It's for 18 years. 18 years for all the amount of money that she embezzled from Tamil Nadu and for everything. 18 years she was in that form. And then 15 days only it took for her to be taking some amount of leverage from the court to get out on bail. Salman Khan, that is going to be another case, a high profile case. That is 13 years took for trial. And the trial was to understand that is whether he made a mistake or not. And to what extent is it that he made a mistake here. Of course, he did made a mistake in killing a black buck. But understand it, was it going to be out of sheer arrogance, or was it going to be out of ignorance, or was it going to be carelessness, or was it going to be for the purpose of insulting the people in that region, or was it going to be for the purpose of wiping the entire of the Ranthambore forest region of the black bucks? Now, you will go to understand it, and you can go to understand it, that is, he neither deserved 13 years in this case, nor he deserved, if 13 years had been a trial, that is a judgment just to be on bail in 3 hours of a time. Now, that is going to be all in all a mockery of it. That's why we say that justice is culture specific, because in different type of culture, different situations will go on to be interpreted in a different manner. It is culture specific. culture specific because for a similar type of a situation, for a similar type of an act, for a similar type of maybe so-called crime, in one of these cultures, you can go on to give them a punishment. In another culture, you can go on to be very, very lenient as well. Take an example of something like a living relationship. That is actually it can go on to be a crime. And you can go to compare two different type of cultures. Western culture, where the father and mother, they fought with each other, they got separated. The mother also got separated. She married once, twice. The father got married once, twice, thrice, 4 times, 5 times. Of course, they can go on to marry as many times. That's why in the Western countries, people do not go on to take the name of their father. They go on to take the name of their mother, essentially, most of it. Now, in these regions, the girls go on to look for some type of a security. And maybe that they're going to get a security and they start living with a person whom they're going to value and whom they started coming close to. Initially, maybe it may have been a physical attraction, but later on it goes into graduate itself into some type of a bonding. Now, that is one part. Now, in India, when you go on to pick up that a girl has been brought up by like a princess, by the father, by the mother, and the entire family's pride goes on to rest with it. And that girl goes on to decide to live with someone, that means which is representing the entire family's pride. She may not be, but then that is what the family goes on to think of. That means almost 20 years of living together with their parents, their judgment with respect to a person, their emotions, their sentiments, she goes on to hit for a 6 and then starts living with a boy against the wishes of, or maybe by hiding some of these things. How can it be both of these cultures can be compared? How is it going to be? So it is culture specific. Of course, it is value specific, and values are given to people in different ways. A value that is going to be given to a person in Pakistan with respect to killing of a person, and in Taliban, both of them are by and large the same, of killing of a person, and they can go to kill mercilessly anyone right now walking on the road, and they don't require a court or anything of this sort at all. That is going to be a value. They have been taught this type of a so-called value, if it is a value, that is you have to kill anyone who is a non-follower of Islam, and you have to kill it mercilessly. That's one. Then there are going to be other of these cultures which go on to provide a different type of value. That is, if you have to, if it goes on to suit your interest, economic interest and other interest, you can go to convert the whole of this region into your faith. That is going to be another part of it. Maybe Christianity can go on to belong to it in this case. Now, the value that has been given here to a person, let's say in someone who has been brought in a traditional Hindu family, in a Sanatani culture, and they have been talked about, that is, you have to value an animal, you have to value a tree, you have to value a person, you have to value the emotion of a person. And if then that person goes on to be committing a crime, you can understand that is indeed in an extremely grave, provocative situation that must have been. Or maybe that the person has completely shed his values in that case. Now, and of course, one of them goes on to be a much more graver crime because of the condition attached to it. So justice is value specific. Justice is region specific as well. Some of this type of a justice that can be meted out in some place like, let's say, Iceland, and in some place like that of India, both of them are not going to be same. I'm going to give you an example from one of my seminars in Iceland, and I was told that is the number of participants would be very, very large. How many of these participants? 25, and that was very large. Of course, for Iceland it was. And the class was having, and the population was having a lady who was just 18, 19, 20, maybe maximum 20 years of age, and she was not of a marriage age, and she had a baby in her hand. Her baby was the darling of this entire of the class, entire of the audience. Now, had it been the same situation in India, you imagine that what would have been the outlook of the people towards it. The justice in that case was that is the child. It's a child. It is not a fault of the child in any case. That means in this case, let's say in India's case, it may have been that is how is it that this girl can go on to do it so, and that she is not of a good character and other things also associated with it. So that is going to be definitely region specific. Judgment is, in contrast, completely logic driven. It is through law that you come to a conclusion, and you are always thinking of coming to that conclusion. It is not about that you go on to combine a variety of type of situations and circumstances. In this case, like culture, like values, like regions, or any one of them, for the purpose of assessing a person and assessing the mental state of a person under which some of these things have happened, or maybe some type of a crime also has been committed in this case. Justice by law has altogether a different meaning. One is, of course, justice is going to be through emotions, justice is going to be culture, justice is going to be associated with, we talk about values, we're going to be talking about upbringing and whatnot. And that's the basic reason that will go on to, you'll understand and appreciate the value of this part. That is, it's going to be a balance. That's going to be a balance. And these are the two eyes which go on to be talking about this type of a balance in this case. And of course, this is symbolic meaning. But then justice by law talks about so many of these components. One of them is a desirable conduct. That is, everyone has to behave in the same manner. Conduct is going to be by and large. And that is what it talks about, uniformity. Now, how is it that you can go on to think about that a 25-year-old and a 45-year-old, both of these people will go on to have a similar type of a conduct, and there can be some degree of a uniformity that can be applied to both of them. But then that is what is justice by law. Our word in this case is going to be law. Law is going to be the catch point in this case. It is going to be the most dominant component in here. That is, we are not going to be talking about, in this case, about anything else other than only law. Then it treats everyone as the same. Now, treating everyone as the same, is it going to be always the justice? It may not be so, largely because you cannot go on to treat everyone as the same. Everyone's circumstances also the same. Circumstances, that is, similar circumstances lead to similar reaction and similar intent. It's not always going to be so. We're going to give you an example of a circumstance and intent as well. There is a child that goes on to steal some amount of medicine from a shop. Now, as the child steals some amount of medicine from the shop, the intent was to give another person some amount of medicine, and the child was not able to buy it, and the shopkeeper was not giving it, and ultimately he was able to deliver that medicine in whichever manner possible, and the person was saved and he was able to survive. Now, in this case, was the intent to steal something from the medicine shop? In this case, was the intent to harm the shopkeeper? The intent was to benefit someone, and he had no option. He had so much amount of value lurking in himself, such an amount of a value that was so heavily weighing on him that he followed that part. That was a circumstance. Reaction was completely different. Intent was, of course, going to be to benefit someone, not exactly to harm someone. This justice by law, which it understands sometimes, which it does not understand as well, but then these are the cardinal situations and circumstances. This evolved out of short period of trial and error. It is not that it has stood the time of a test of time and had stood a lot of components. We are going to be talking about a short period of a trial and error. That basically means that it has not been given enough amount of a time, and most of it is going to be a product of whatever Western countries have done. Most of it has been a product of whatever Western countries in this case have done, not what has been in different type of cultures. Consequently, justice by law goes on to be having different type of limitations. One is, justice by law is legal. It's of course legal, it's logical, it's legal, it's argumentative, of course, and because it is going to be, can be easily manipulated. And why it can be manipulated? because you can go on to put one argument, you can go on to hide one argument, saying that, well, of course, you never knew that part. And logically, not everyone is logically strong. Some of these people can be intuitively strong. Not everyone is logically. Argumentative means it's a skill. Anyone can go to have a skill. It's like that of examination. Some people have a very good examination skill. Some people may not going to be having it. That's one. It's externally imposed laws that can never be a substitute for internal values in this case. Internal values, that means I intend to do something good to the people, to the country, to the society. That is the internal value. But then the external situations do not going to understand my internal values in this case. That is a limitation. Internal value is going to be a limitation. Then accountability flows from the law. Responsibility flows from the individual. We're going to give an example. Ancient India never had any concept of what we call as Samaj, society. It was all based on what we're going to be calling it as Sanyam. That is what people used to think, what people used to think ethically, what people used to think logically. How is it that people used to think about other people, empathy? It was all based on that. So that was responsibility, because they had a lot of responsibility to follow, and they used to follow a lot of responsibility. They used to take a lot of responsibility. Consequently, they were not going to be doing anything wrong at all in general. And that is the basic reason that those type of situations, those type of conditions, and those type of maybe political economies used to be called by the name of Ram Raj. That was the one. Responsibility does not flow from law. It goes on to flow from an individual that way. So justice without emotions has a lot of limitations. A mother killing her son only because she is not able to feed the son, she is not able to feed the child, and she thinks that she will die a death of her mother if she allows her child to be in that type of a situation. A person who sees a grave crime being committed against their older mother, an 80 or 90-year-old mother. We take a situation, I'll be sorry to pick up this example, but that will go on to make it very, very good for you to understand it. Let's say if there is someone who is seeing their mother, in a sense, molested, and she is 90 years old. Now, a person who is about 50 years old or maybe 40 years old or any amount of age, they must go on to live their entire life to remember that tragedy, to remember the pain that been inflicted on them. So they do going to think that this is the only time that I can going to be, either I don't going to live or I going to prevent it, rather than go on by the guilt of living my life entirely by seeing my mother being molested in this case. So is it that justice goes on to take these things into account? Legal justice does not go on to foresee circumstances or intentions in this case. That is going to be limitation. And to be more legally correct, the country requires number of laws. And greater the number of laws, more corrupt the country is. The larger the number of laws, the larger the number of legalities, the more corrupt the country is. And that's the reason, despite strong laws, justice can never be delivered. You can make a judgment that is, well, the person is wrong or right, but then you make umpteenth number of laws, you cannot go to deliver a justice. But then, the more the people go on to understand about it, they are able to provide justice not only to themselves, but also to the people concerned in this case. So, justice is about respect for each other. That means the more that you're going to respect each other, that is, the more it is going to be associated with justice. That is, that's the catch point of it. Respect for each other. When you respect each other, you will not go on to do anything nefarious to that condition or to that situation. It is all about a conduct. That is, let's say you go on to be very nice, and you go on to be well behaved. Suddenly, because of a mood or because of any situation, you go on to become completely ill-mannered. Do you know? All of those things, nice things that you have done, you have put everything on, you have watered down almost everything. One conduct. Of course, that can be excused, but then what was the need for that, all in all? Thus, you will go on to understand that this is what exactly is the bane of the people who are of a younger age, of a so-called new generation. Justice is all about character as well. That is, How is it that you can go on to believe anyone who goes on to be showing a flimsy character? He goes on to be something to you, something else to someone else, something else to someone else. To 10 different people, he goes on to be showing a different type of a character. To some of them, one is lying. To some of them, that is very smooth. To some of them, they go on to be cheating. Into some of them, it goes on to be trying to manipulate. And to one of them, one can go on to go to a situation like I'm completely helpless in this case. Now, when you go on to find a person who can go to spit and then go on to take that spit inside once again, that person hasn't got any character. There is no way that there can be anything like a justice that can be meted out to them at all. It's better to be away from that person. Justice is about character, because if you have a character, you will always try to do justice to the person concerned. Maybe you're going to become wrong. Maybe you're going to be wrong, but then you're going to recognize it, identify that, and go ahead with it as well. It is about truth. The biggest hallmark of justice is always going to be truth. Truth never goes on to become a culprit in this case. Truth and transparency as well. Language and expression are significant because when you are in a position to provide justice to, let's say, age, justice for the purpose of respect, then you always going to take care of control of your language and expression, both of them. You'll never go on to use a foul language against anyone that you are respecting, and you say that is you will be able to do justice to a situation or to that person. If you are using a foul language, you're not going to be doing justice to that situation or person at all. So that is where language goes on to become significant. Of course, expression always goes on to become significant. Then behavior and actions in this case. And why is it that we are going to be talking about behavior and actions in this case? That is, if there is any amount of a contradiction between what we say, what we feel, what we go on to act, and how is it that we go on to be implementing ourselves. If there is a contradiction, it is not going to be associated with anything with justice. Justice is going to require that your behavior, your words, your intent, your actions, all of them are in congruence with each other. It's also a matter of feeling. Justice is a matter of feeling that you want to do justice, and that's why you want to do justice, because you are looking for equality. Equality, that means there can be a sense of equality between father and a mother, but then you can't go to equate equality in both of them. To one of them, you are going to be very, very naughty. Maybe that with your mother, you can go to be very naughty. You cannot go on to be so naughty with your father, possibly in this case. Maybe that you're going to treat father with respect and you don't going to speak something out as well. For example, maybe that is younger generation may not going to understand it, but most of the people of our generation, that means people who were born in 1960s, 65, 70s and so on, that is in front of their father, then they're not going to sit as well. Forget about anything else in this case. They're not going to talk about their girlfriends and some of those type of naughtiness also that they have done. That was only visible to that the window was only visible only for their elder brothers, only for their mothers as well, who were going to be protective in this case. So justice is always going to be about effort, togetherness, bringing together, and most of all, it is going to be about respect. If you are in love with a person, the first thing that you're going to do is provide respect. The moment respect is absent, then there has not been any love at all, because it is synonymous with it. One is a symbolism, one is what we're going to say, that is the action, another is going to be in terms of words also. That is a respect. Whenever you are talking about justice, that is respect is there. Respect for, maybe you going to be having a pet in your house, you will also going to respect the pet in terms of to what extent that is the pet requires time. Maybe that you have kept a pet and you are giving him food and everything. Now the pet requires some amount of a time from you so that he can go on to play with you, and you are not doing it. You are not doing any justice to that at all. You are not respecting the feelings of the pet also in this case. So it's not only going to be about legality in this case at all. Therefore, we say that no law can determine and set norms. It's not simply possible that for the purpose of justice, there is going to be any type of a law that can go to define, determine, and set norms of whether you are going to be doing justice to any situation or not. Just going to take some examples. Now, if you have a prime minister, for example, you're going to be having a prime minister, and that prime minister sees himself as a servant, or he goes on to he sees himself as a ruler. Who knows that part? Who knows that one is going to be a prime minister who is going to be seeing himself as a ruler and one is seeing himself as a servant of it? You can go to make out a difference, and you yourself will be able to make a value judgment with respect to that. Pick up the case with Nehru and pick up a case with Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Both of them. One goes on to be saying that one went on to give a speech on Lal Killa in 1947 when no one understood English, and he gave a speech in English. Remember that language? Long ago we had made a tryst with destiny. That was the English he was using. For whom? For whom? He could have used Tamil, he could have used Telugu, any one of them. And you're going to see a prime minister who is talking about, who is giving a speech in the language that he knows, that is in Hindi, United Nations. That is, whether he is going to be calling himself as a servant or he is going to be calling himself as a master, he determines it and he understands it. Then whether the doctor goes on to treat the patient suffering as patient, or he goes on to treat it as a client. The doctor can go on to do two things. He can go on to see that the person concerned is a client. That means he has to earn money out of it. So he'll keep on troubling it, as most of the doctors going to do it during this present regime also. The other is goes on to see that the patient is actually suffering and they will go on to pour their feelings into it. It's a different manner that the present society does not go on to acknowledge that part, doesn't go on to acknowledge that aspect. That's a different part. But then that is whether you are doing justice to them or not. You can go to take the case of teachers as well, whether the teachers going to be treating their students as students. Now, how is it they have to treat the students? That is, if you go on to be treating the students for the purpose of reforming them, then that is going to be like a student. And if you go on to be treating them as a customer, you will going to say that whatever you're going to do is very good, right? You keep on doing it, and I'm not concerned with it. That is going to be like treating them like a customer. So that you understand that, well, to hell with them, to hell with their career, to hell with their reform or not, because otherwise that they'll start abusing you. So to do away, you do away with everything in this case. Now, whether the students consider themselves as learners or whether they're going to consider themselves as consumers. So good number of students, let's say, who have gone on to pay a fee to any coaching institute, they consider themselves as a consumer rather than as a learner. And when they consider themselves as a consumer, they are judgmental in this case. They go on to mark out, that is, whether the teacher is teaching correct or not, whether he is taking facts correctly or not, whether he should teach this topic or not, whether he should teach in this manner or not. Now, these are the students who are complete consumers. They are never going to learn out of any situation or anything at all in this case. In a similar manner, whether the son respects the father and treats him as a support or a support till employment. It is like some of the sons or most of the sons, how exactly is it that they're going to go ahead with it? Some of them go on to treat their parents as if they are going to be support. Once I have taken their support, I'll go on to move away and I'll to hell with them. They're going to take care of themselves. That is how they're going to think of it. Then you cannot go on to judge the intent and intention of a person, a boy who lusts for a girl or actually loves her. There is no way that you can go to know that part. That is, both of these are going to be not interchangeable. And to use a somewhat generally ugly example, but that is going to help you understand it. That is, there's a slight amount of a difference between when you make love to a person and when you have sex with a person. Both of them are diametrically opposite to each other. One is lusting with it and another is loving a person. That is, a girl, when he goes on to be loving a person, then that is what exactly she goes on to. She deposits herself in complete control of the boy concerned in this case. And that is because she respects it, and that is going to be one form of a love for the girl. Now, the boy's love in this case will go on to mean that is how much amount of protection is it that one is able to give to it. Now, if that protection is absent, the girl can go to feel in every touch, in every action, every form of it, and that is going to be generally known. And whether again you can go to a pharmaceutical company treats the people in a manner to evolve a research or actually going to be using them like a guinea pig. I will going to find that a good number of these multinational companies who even forced in India Prime Minister Modi to accept their vaccines in terms of COVID-19. Like we're going to be talking about some of these multinational companies have been there, Pfizer and whatnot. All of these, is it that they have treated the patient for the purpose of the research, or is it that they're going to be talking about guinea pigs? Now that is going to be important in this case. And you can go to imagine also the governments as well. That is, whether the policies of the government are for the welfare of the people, or is it that the policy of the government is made popularly only for the purpose of winning an election. So when you go on to implement a policy, when you're going to use a policy for the purpose of winning election, you want to know that and you understand that part also. You understand it very, very, very well that this is for the purpose of it. You can go to understand the policies of a Delhi government. All of their style, actions, and intents are generally meant for the purpose of winning election, making fool of the people. That is giving huge advertisements and huge hoardings and saying that is we have done this, we have done that. Now when you are doing it, 500 crore rupees of advertisement they gave. Now in that amount, they could have established a state-of-the-art hospitals in at least 2 or 3 places also, and they could have treated good number of people in this case. And you can well understand now the significance of what we are going to be talking about here. You can well understand that part. And that's the basic reason that Supreme Court had to intervene that even if the person goes on to have sex with his wife without her consent, that will be considered as a marital rape. Why is it that Supreme Court had to intervene in this case? That was only because of one reason, one and only one reason. Because people's actions, their words are not transparent in this case at all. That has been the case. So in any case, all of these examples that we talked about, if these things are going to be flouted or they're going to be camouflaged, we are going to be talking about both of them. If they're going to be flouted or they're camouflaged, they're going to be hidden, then the treatment has not been made and that has not been justice. Despite the fact that maybe logic has given you an idea that you have made a judgment of sorts. So you will go to say that, well, my wife is living with me, I have given her money, I have given her a house. Now that is what is the logic? Logic can go on to logic helps you win over the situation. Justice wins over a person. Logic does not going to help you win over the person at all. Justice is much more than that. So when you are going to be camouflaging anything, you can go to show it. See, this is what all that I have done. I have done it much more than what anyone can go to deserve. But deep inside, you and the person to whom you have meted out this type of justice is understood. That is what your intentions are and how is it that you have been doing it so. Now, in essence, you understand human beings are only partly logical. They are more sensitive, they are more illogical, they are more emotional. So human beings don't go into everything cannot be logicked out at all. It's not simply possible because human beings have in themselves a lot of empathy, a lot of sympathy, a lot of emotion, a lot of feelings, and they keep on. These type of feelings keep on changing. Ultimately, you know what you have done is going to be correct or not in this case. Our treatment for each other does not hinge on judgment, rather it hinges on rather it necessitates justice. Move towards justice and ensure justice, because when you are able to provide justice to every situation, like a parent goes into doing it, the moment parents and the most elderly persons in the family go on to be providing such type of justice, in this case, then such type of justice will go on to bind the parents together, bind the family together, and the family will always go on to remain so. So when the treatment has been done as per the consonance of justice, then actually justice is made. Judgment is mostly done by law. Judgment is what is done in a Supreme Court. Judgment is what is done in a High Court. And that is a product of a logical discussion. That is a product of an argument. That is a product of whatever the situation has been made it out to be. Justice is not like that. That is, even if you have made an argument, even if you have presented a case, even if that some judgment has been made it out, it's possible that justice has not been done. This is largely because justice is not in law. Justice is in all the ways we treat each other, we respect each other, we treat their feelings. Justice is not always in law. It is always in the way we actually treat every human being in such a manner.
To have more such discussions and analysis, subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon for notifications on our upcoming videos.